Thank you, Mayor Ron Nirenberg, for your years and years of tenure and service. I am so delighted to be here with you in the Majestic Theater and interview you today.
I'm excited to be here with you, Vocab.
Yay! So, how many years have you been in this beautiful city?
I'm going on 30 now.
30
So I got
years.
here in 1995
Mm,
and I was 18 going to school, and I had no idea that I would stay beyond my years in school. First few years of me attending school,
mhm,
I fell in love with the city, and I knew that this was going to be a place that I'd at some point come back to. I went away for 2 years to get my master's in Philadelphia, but I came right back following Erica, my wife.
yes.
But so 30 years minus two that I was in Philly.
Yeah, I think you kind of embody brotherly love when I think about you, and just you're a very loving person, and you
Thank you.
see your passion for people come out in all of your initiatives, including something that I hope we can talk about later, which is Compassionate USA and
Absolutely.
being a city of compassion,
Absolutely.
and what that means to you in your life, how it plays out. But I want to start with, as one of the longest serving mayors of San Antonio, you've surely got a couple of favorite spots and hidden gems and places that you really love. So, what are some places here in San Antonio? I'll give you three to four that you've just
Oh,
fallen in love with. And you can talk food, you can talk sports, you can talk leisure activities.
yeah. Oh, there's a variety of places, obviously. The first one that comes to mind actually is the one I send people to that are visiting our city if they want to kind of get off the tourist trip.
Hmm.
And that is Jazz, Texas. Brent Watkins' place down at the Pearl Underground, but it's a legit jazz club in the
Yes,
center
it
of San
is.
Antonio. And you go down there and you wouldn't imagine that you're in the same city. I do now because I think this city is becoming a place that embraces all kinds of venues. But that's a really great place. I love to go there when I can. Um, I love to be in San Fernando Cathedral. Uh,
Mm,
it's a it's a place where I can just sit and feel the presence of the Holy Spirit. And people don't know much about importance of faith in my life, but it is important. And so that's a place where occasionally I'll just go and just sit in quiet contemplation and meditate. Um, and actually, a similar place to that don't get to go to very often, but I enjoy being in is the Quad at Fort Sam, Houston.
okay.
A lot of history in this place, and we are Military City, USA. You get a real sense of the grandiosity of the history of this city by being in Fort Sam, Houston. But in the Quad is a place of reverence and respect and awe. People who have come through those gates and paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms in this country. So those are the three that come to mind. I can probably list a whole lot more.
Okay.
Um, yeah, but those are the first three.
So one that's also kind of a fun question. Another one is, we San Antonio has a lot of titles. You mentioned Military City USA,
Mm-hmm.
UNESCO, gastronomy, all that good stuff. What's a title that you kind of like? Let me wipe my shoulders on this one because it's a good one to hang our hat on. What do you
Yeah,
think is a good title for us?
one that we don't use often enough, um, but we should, is Inclusion City USA, and
Yeah.
it's sort of because of the incredible work that Gordon Hartman has done and Morgan's Wonderland and what that has done for inclusion and accessibility, not just for our city and our mentality, but that has been now brought to other places in the country. There's more places that want to have one. In fact, there's one being built. I think it's public at this point where, but inclusion, we named the plaza in front of City Hall Inclusion Plaza
Nice.
because we remodeled it in a way that encourages people to congregate to make their voices heard. But San Antonio, it's ethos. We're a compassionate city. I believe inclusion is one of the most powerful ways that we go about making a city that's fair and just, equitable.
Absolutely.
And so, knowing ourselves as Inclusion City USA, which we have proclaimed, is something I think more people need to talk about and acknowledge.
I think that's really important too, to talk about the idea of inclusivity, and not it, because it's not just about tolerating people, it's about accepting them. And I would like to bring up the Compassionate USA driving campaign that you've been a part of.
Yeah.
How important is that? And if there's certain things about San Antonio that you think other cities should model, what would you
Yeah.
say model? What examples do you think we set that you want other cities to follow after?
Well, I can talk all day about the compassion work that we're doing. I'll just start with day one of my administration. The first document I wanted to sign when I became mayor was a charter for compassion that was really acknowledging compassion, as I understand it, to be the foundation of all public policy, of all the work
Mm-hmm.
that we do on behalf of and in the public. It is based in compassion, understanding people's challenges and working to address them as a community. So we did that. We started a Compassion San Antonio program.
Mm-hmm.
It has been an acknowledgement of a few things. By signing a charter for compassion for the city of San Antonio, it didn't all of a sudden make us a compassionate community. It was a recognition that San Antonio is already that. And in fact, human beings are compassionate. Compassion is part of our DNA. But what it acknowledges is that it needs to be practiced. It's a muscle. You need to
Absolutely.
practice the skills and actions of compassion. Compassion is different than empathy. Empathy is being able to understand and put yourself in someone else's shoes. Compassion is acknowledging the suffering or challenges of another person and then working to ease that person's suffering. We do that through the work of the public. So Compassionate USA came about a couple of years ago in the shadows of the horrific tragedy in Uvalde, when we were all trying to figure out what do we do as policymakers, as community leaders. And Compassion San Antonio, which has been training people in our community to be ambassadors of this mindset, to really take compassion into their work, whatever that is, business, civic, whatever, was a evolution of that work to create a 6-part curriculum that is free to download for anyone in the world, that is multimedia and trains people, organizational leaders, household leaders, people in the neighborhoods, but trains them on these concepts of compassion in a very simple way. And the theory is, if we can get there's social science behind the idea that in order to create cultural change in a community,
Mm-hmm.
3 to 10% of people need to change their behavior. So the
Wow.
idea is, if we can train enough people in these concepts and skills of compassion, we can begin to change the way things are going, which is in a more divisive, more polarized, more unfortunately hate fueled space that we're in right now. A lot of trauma and a lot of division. If we can begin to teach people how to deal with that trauma compassionately, we can begin to change whole organizations, whole cities, perhaps, whole countries, and maybe the whole world. We've had over 300 organizations and cities adopt this program,
Mm-hmm.
and we want to methodically teach people these skill sets. CompassionateUSA.org is a creation of the city of San Antonio in partnership with the Alamo Community College District. It was launched in the platform of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I'm the chair of the Center for Compassionate and Equitable Cities and Businesses, and it is now working its way throughout the world.
That's wonderful. I've heard you talk about it at a few different National Day of Healing events and Alamo College events that I've attended, and I really love that you continue to be consistent in modeling that to the citizens of San Antonio, Texas, and like telling us, hey, let's walk in love with each other and let's be compassionate. Something else that I want to ask you, because this is something I was talking to Nick about, there's many ways that people can civically engage with council people and with you as the mayor. How do you think is the most effective way for citizens of San Antonio to talk to you? And what are some of the ways you wish that people had communicated with you during your term?
Oh gosh. So that's a difficult one, because in our space as civic leaders, we try to be where people are. So just about every which way people communicate nowadays, through email, phone calls, through the web, through social media, we try to be present in those spaces. Town halls and face-to-face meetings are still the best. There's limited opportunity for those things. And so, I really wish people would. My hope is that we create more spaces where people to be in the same space together physically,
Right.
which is a lot different, and it's meaningful because there's a lot that gets lost in mediated communication. The one place I would encourage people not to use to communicate with others, specifically, their representatives, is on social media comments.
Yeah.
You probably know, I think everybody knows, social media space is kind of a cesspool of people's worst
Agonizing.
instincts. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there's no filters, there's no mores and kind of boundaries for, and there's a lot of trolls. In fact, it's bots and troll, and very few and far between are there exceptions. And so, if you want to communicate with your elected officials, they are open. They want to hear from you. They're desperate to hear their constituents' real voices and concerns, and to communicate back and forth. Do it in person, phone call, attend a neighborhood meeting, attend a town hall. Try to do it that way because there's meaningful communication when that happens.
Yeah, I bet you've seen a lot of touching meetings, touching moments when you've been in the chambers and having. Can you think of moments that were really meaningful to you? You're like, man, that was a good moment when
Oh
people
yeah.
came in and
Oh, for
spoke to
sure.
us.
Oh, for sure. And some of them are the most uncomfortable moments too. I mean,
Yeah,
our tense, controversial issues when we meet them out in public in the chambers, they can be difficult meetings sometimes. But that's when, that's when the meaningful things happen. When we have convenings for our housing plan, and we open
mm,
the floor and have roundtable discussions about what people's experiences have been in the aftermath, the generations after redlining, those same kinds of challenges that we need to deal with. That's when we hear the real trauma that's out there that we can begin to put into actions to address it. Housing has been changed, it has been transformed because of meetings like that. Certainly, our transportation system, the Ready to Work program, which is the largest workforce development investment in the nation, was done because of those kinds of opportunities for people to make their voices heard about the challenges they're experiencing.
yeah, you've done a tremendous amount of work in a lot of. I'd say we have. This is a understatement. We have some really smart council people working at all times to think about their district, the people that live in those spaces, and how they want to be taken care of, and plans and things that they need.
So important for people to recognize that San Antonio has committed itself to this concept of equity. And in my view, equity begins with having a seat at the table, having a
Mm,
voice in your community. That's where equity begins. And so we are dedicated to that. The city council, the city organization is. And so people should take advantage of it because you have felt like you've been left out of the conversation, is exactly why we need you at the table to address the challenges that have been present and unaddressed in our community for so long.
yeah, and I feel like you're talking to me personally. And I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that to heart. I really am going to take that to heart, especially when we're in a season where DEI is becoming demonized and under attack.
Yeah.
And we definitely need to understand the meaning of inclusion and shifting the perspective to talk about infrastructure. I'm actually going to defer to what's on my paper because I've just been asking whatever questions I want to ask.
Which is fine too.
But I do want to ask you some good ones that I kind of starred. San Antonio has been named the fastest growing city in America. Flex.
Yeah.
What steps is the city taking to ensure sustainable and you talked about
Yeah.
this some sustainable and inclusive growth, particularly in the areas of experiencing rapid gentrification?
Yeah. Well, that's a big challenge, and so I'll start by saying being the fastest growing city in the country is not a goal; it's a consequence. It's a consequence of having a city that people are enjoying living in and
Yeah.
investing in and seeing their futures in. It's not that we just simply want more people here. We want to create a place where people want to be, and that's for the people who are already here. And so, what we need to do is continue to protect cost of living. That is an increasing challenge here.
Mm,
We have done things with our limited tools to protect the burden of taxes, like homestead exemptions. We've created one and we've maxed it out. We have continued to advocate at the state legislature for them to protect uh, homeowners who have been there for generations who are or more vulnerable because they're on fixed incomes to improvements in the areas around them. But we need to keep up with growing infrastructure, housing, transportation, and that includes maintaining infrastructure and in some cases investing in places where it's been disinvested in for a long time.
mm,
That's part of the challenge is that the solutions for disinvestment in communities um, are often creating the unintended consequences of gentrification that increases property values for people who have been living there for a long time. So what San Antonio has done as a result of all these housing meetings is create anti-displacement tools
Oh, okay.
so that we can, ensure that we're providing as best we can buffers for homeowners and renters in the area
Hmm.
so that they're not totally exposed to the rising values of the improvements in the area. But I'll tell you, it's a challenge because the state system of taxation is very regressive, and it essentially continues to exacerbate inequality and does not protect people on the lower spectrum of income.
So I have a good question for that part. We're gonna put a pin in that, the lower income. What does it look like when city council convenes and they're looking at the topography of the land of San Antonio? How do they know where to focus their energies fiscally,
Yeah.
legislatively? How does that look?
So it's a great question, and that's where we started back when I became mayor in 2017. The first thing we did is we had a conversation about what is equity, what is the impacts of redlining, and how do we develop a lens for equity to place on our programming of infrastructure dollars and how we spend our community's scarce resources.
Mhm.
And so we developed an equity atlas, and based on the needs that are present in different parts of the community, we will direct resources to address those needs. So, for instance, in the east side of San Antonio, had years and years of disinvestment, and we have infrastructure that's built on clay soils. So we know there that we're going to need to spend more on basic road and sidewalk infrastructure just to keep up the maintenance
Yeah.
and also overcome some of that disinvestment. So we're spending a lot, pouring a disproportionate amount of resources compared to other parts into the east side just so we can get it back up to par. There are other parts of the community that are like that as well. We are looking at our comprehensive plan, which was adopted in 2016, uh, as to where we concentrate resources in housing. It's a citywide issue, but we need to focus, certain types of developments in different areas based on whether there's a gap in services in those parts.
Mhm.
And then when it comes to things like transportation, we are going according to our comprehensive plan. Where are people residing? Where are they going to work? And let's connect those areas with transit opportunities. So things like that, we look at the comprehensive plan and the equity framework that we've put together to address needs.
And does that plan continue after your term ends, or does that kind of stop with
Um,
you?
So I am hopeful that it will continue because
Mm,
all of the initiatives that I've talked about have been supported in one way, shape, or form by public initiatives, public proposals that I've asked the voters to consider. But let's be frank, elections have consequences, and that's why I think it's an urgent matter for City of San Antonio residents to consider who they elect for their next mayor and council members. We
absolutely.
need to be asking about their perspective on continued progress towards a more equitable, more fair city. All the things that I've talked about in my approach to being mayor was that these are long-term issues. My report card and how I did in my 8 years as mayor, it sounds like a long time.
It's
It's a blink of
not.
an eye in terms of the things we
Yeah,
have to do.
absolutely.
The impact of what we're doing right now is going to be felt 20, 30 years from now. And that's been my horizon when I think about what am I trying to accomplish. I want to make sure that the work that I'm doing now leaves a better community for my son and his generation. And that's the nature of this work, building that equitable, strong foundation for prosperity in the city requires us to continue to work on that foundation. And so I hope it continues. It will continue if it's a priority of the next council and mayor.
So Jonah, right?
Yeah.
That's his name. What are you most proud that you have created for his generation?
Specifically,
Mm-hmm.
I am proudest of our work to create a comprehensive systems approach to ending cycles of poverty in the city.
Come on.
And it's I think about it in three ways. Although there's a fourth that I'll mention that we have less control over, but we're working to address it. The first one is housing. It's the foundation of economic security for a family, and it is the same for the city. So we started with a housing plan. We're in year 3 or 4 of a strategic housing implementation plan. We changed the charter. We're past our first ever housing bond. We are working on the spectrum of housing with public and private sector at the table,
Yeah,
creating an ecosystem for a healthy housing
absolutely.
system.
And Mark Whittick has done a
He's
tremendous
a
job.
huge huge inspiration in this effort. And that includes homeless services because, again, we're trying to make sure that everyone has a place to call home
Right.
safely and affordably. The second part is transportation. The second highest expense for a family is the cost of transportation. In a city
Mhm.
where you have to have a car to get
Gotta.
around,
Yeah.
it's the difference between being able to afford to put food on your table or not. And so we've got to create options. The city, for the first time ever, is building a mass transit system, north, south, east, west, because of the voters approving the proposition in November of 2020 to finally bring that 8 cent into VIA to create an advanced rapid transit system that the federal government has added capital funding to. So we're building mass transit. We've got to continue to grow our transportation system. That's the second pillar. The third one is sometimes the hardest, but in my view, the most gratifying, and that is education and workforce
Hmm.
development. We have created in the city of San Antonio the strongest, most well-resourced educational pipeline in the country. And I can say that as a matter of fact because I talk to my peers from all across the country, from pre-K, which was expanded and renewed in 2020, to the innovations, despite the challenges in the K through 12 system, the work that's going on there. Every single high school graduate in Bexar County now can attend the best community college district in the country, Alamo Colleges, for free with supports to stay in school. And so you have all of those things in a pipeline, those options for kids to make sure from earliest to the time they graduate, they have options to get a post-secondary education, whether that's a professional certificate or a degree, which is absolutely necessary to get a job that pays a sustaining, life-giving wage. But I'm not done. So there are many, many
Hmm.
tens of thousands of heads of household, adult workers who are locked in cycles of underemployment, who have to work multiple jobs just to make ends meet. Their kids are in a situation where they're much less likely to have their own educational success, and so they're locked in cycles of poverty too. So we have created the Ready to Work program
Mm.
and workforce development in general that allows for people who are in those cycles to get retrained for jobs that employers need to fill that pay great wages with benefits. The average Ready to Work participant is a woman of color raising children in a household making less than $14,000 a year. That is a life of dependency with the children suffering the worst of it. By the time that person graduates and gets placed into a job through the Ready to Work program, they're getting paid in a job that's a wage of $44,000 a year with benefits, the
Mm.
participant. We are now at scale. We've got over 10,000 people enrolled. 3,000 have already finished. Over 3,000, we've got close to 2,000 placed in jobs. It is hard work because every single one of those participants has a different life experience and a
Right.
different set of barriers. We're working individually with all those folks, and we're going to be doing this for a while because the voters approved a significant portion of time for us to do this in terms of that sales tax. The sales tax will eventually be spent down, but not until all those participants have gone through. So between pre-K to the adult workforce, we have options for people to get upwardly mobile through education. So housing, transportation, and education. The last one I will tell you, we are working to help, but is harder because we don't have control over it, is our healthcare system. People need to have access to quality health care, and they don't, frankly, in the state of Texas, where we have turned our back on people's health needs.
Mm.
But we are working to address those gaps through indigent care, through our Metro Health, Public Health Authority strategic plan. We're working on that, but those three that I mentioned first, I think, are the most important pillars.
Absolutely. You talk about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We gotta
Yeah,
we gotta address these basic needs so that people can function in
absolutely.
society and be able to contribute back. And so many citizens in this city, in particular, have children, and they're constantly thinking about how do I take care of my children? How
Yeah,
do I take care of their needs? They're usually putting their kids' needs first, and then themselves secondly, when they really need to take care of themselves so that they take care of their kids
yeah.
better. I want to shift to talking about a women's issue question. Can you share what measures you supported to ensure that women that are in lower income tax brackets have access to affordable health care, which is something you're talking about right
Yeah,
now, and preventive screenings and even mental health
yeah.
services?
It is challenging in the state of Texas to intervene on the needs of health
Yeah.
care in general, specifically with women. But I'm proud of our city. I'm proud of the council who has been bold in ensuring that we are focused on what people need in the city, and that is including women's health care. So, a couple of things. We have a mental health strategic plan, and children and families are one of the pillars of that
Mm.
plan. So we continue to work with nonprofits and other agencies to find out what people need and to provide funding for those nonprofits that fill those gaps. We also are working on the other foundational pieces that would enable someone to have access to affordable health care through workforce and housing, et cetera. But I want to make specific mention of the fact that we are in the midst of a major effort on childcare in the city. We have a capacity study and a needs-based study, and we're going to be all in on addressing the gaps in childcare as we move forward. Last thing I'll say specifically on women's health care and specifically women's reproductive health care, the city has been bold about that. We will
Yeah.
continue to, despite some of the political challenges and attacks. We're going to continue to work towards ensuring that women have control over their own healthcare decisions, over their own bodies, and that's going to be a major focus, as we continue to move forward. People need to be able to make their own healthcare decisions, and
Absolutely. Thank you.
we're going to do what we can to make that the case in San Antonio.
Yeah, and I know you're not blowing smoke on that one because I'm going to ask you a kind of personal question. Uh, I love your wife. Erica Prosper is a baddie
Thank
and
you.
a force all in of herself. I love hearing her talk. I love when she speaks so passionate. I've been
Yeah,
blessed to be in the room with her on many occasions.
me too.
Yes, you have. What are some places where, when it comes to you, not just your politics, but things that you feel passionate about, where y'all have lots of deep conversations and you see like definitely eye to eye and she kind of inspires you to speak to some issues? What are some issues where y'all have
Uh,
those moments?
Erica is a force of nature. Her passions are similar to mine. They intersect a lot. She has her own passions. That we've been really focused on, though, is children's issues and how do we ensure that children have an opportunity to reach their full potential through education. That's one of the reasons why I've gotten all in on this issue of workforce and breaking cycles of generational poverty. It's not just
Mm,
about training adults to get better wages,
yeah,
to gain access to better careers. It's also about what happens in those households when parents no longer have to work three jobs just to put food on the table. Those
yeah,
kids are nurtured. Those kids statistically have better educational outcomes and are able to pursue their own dreams and aspirations. That's really what it's about. She is, and I am passionate about issues related to immigration and the treatment, the humane treatment of migrants, migrant
yes,
workers, and the impact that they have on families in our community. And we're going to continue to speak out about that in a humane way.
right.
Um, and we're also very passionate about the arts. We're here at the Majestic Theater. They're going to have their Jossy Awards this year in Majestic. It's one of the best shows of the year. We love coming out to see the young people perform, and we're going to continue to advocate for their opportunities to be on the stage and show their talents.
That's beautiful. It's hard for me not to go off, but I commend your wife's ability to get on social media and put those alerts out about these are your rights concerning if you're approached by ICE or if they're knocking on your door. That it's so beautiful that she takes such a strong stand, and it takes a lot of bravery, especially when you know you're standing next to someone who's constantly under a microscope, constantly being every decision you make is magnified,
Well,
scrutinized, all of that. But your integrity is just so key and beautiful. You
well,
exemplify it at all times.
I,
I appreciate it.
I appreciate that, but I think uh, too often we get into these bipolar conversations about topics like immigration or the environment versus the economy. We can be a community that upholds and watches out for public safety, number one, but also a community that is inclusive and compassionate and treats people with basic dignity. We can be a city that follows the law and also provides resources to people who are here and need help. That's what San Antonio is, and that's why San Antonio is a compassionate city. That's what we've always done. But I think also, we have to recognize that politics is what has created division. Human beings are compassionate beings, and when we address the needs of someone in our community, it's not taking away from someone and providing somebody else. We too often make these issues zero sum. When I improve the life of someone in need, when I provide a roof over someone's head, it actually improves the rest of the community as well.
Absolutely.
And we've gotten away from the idea that we all are in this together. Remember the mantra during the pandemic: what happens to the person down the street is going to affect you. And so we've got to recognize that we will sink or swim together, and let's work to address each other's needs in the best way we can.
In closing, I'd like to ask you one more question. What do you see the biggest challenge facing San Antonio's growth over the next decade? Because we are growing fast.
Yeah,
What do you think one of the biggest challenges we have in a fastly growing city?
I think the biggest challenge we will face moving forward is political. Do we
Mm,
have the fortitude as a community to continue to work together, to continue to invest in the infrastructure and human capital of this community the way we have over the last 8 years? Because there's no doubt in my mind we have hit a positive inflection point for the city. And if we continue this generational commitment to making a prosperous, inclusively prosperous community, we're going to be one of the best cities in America. We're already seeing it happening. The airport's under development. Downtown is starting to boom again. We've got employers who want to put their best jobs here in San Antonio. So we're going in the right place. We have the fortitude politically, making the right decisions at the ballot box to continue on this trajectory, buffer San Antonio from the divisiveness and the ugliness of politics that's happening outside. Let's continue to be San Antonio. I think if we can do that, there's no doubt in my mind San Antonio is going to be in the top of a lot of lists over the next 10 years. I would suggest people go to sa.gov. A lot of great information also that Centro is doing specifically for the
mhm.
downtown area. But if there's a better way of presenting it, we will do it on sa.gov. We've got so many dashboards there to show progress in housing and workforce and our health metrics. If there was one resource, I would go to sa.gov.
I'll wrap my questions for now. I want to thank you for your time.
It's
You
been an
know I love
honor.
you, and I've been an
I
honor for
love
me
you
too,
too.
man. Wow, I'm glad I got to rock with you for all these years. You've been doing your amazing work, and please, if we can follow you and you continue on this political civic service journey, I'm going to be voting for you.
I view this as the end of Act One.
Stay tuned. More to come.